Hello, good morning, everyone. Bom dia, gente. I'm very happy to greet you all this morning, afternoon, or night, according to wherever you are. I see that we have people from several parts of the world, which makes me very happy and very, very glad to meet you all this morning. My name is Pablo Collada. I'm greeting you from Mexico City. I'm the network coordinator for the Latin America and the Caribbean Affinity Group for WINGS. For whomever is connected here that doesn't necessarily know who WINGS is, let me tell you, WINGS is a network of more than 150, actually we're just about 170 philanthropy organizations, which gather all a different set of actors, all the way from, or institutions, from networks to academic institutions, support organizations and funders in more than 60 countries. And the purpose is to strengthen, promote, and provide leadership on the development of philanthropy and social investment. So as part of the work of WINGS, one of the main or the important facets of our work has to do with developing or providing information and knowledge regarding the sector to our members and basically to any actor who's interested in working in the philanthropy ecosystem. For that, you can visit our knowledge center in wingsweb.org, and you will find dozens of different guides, manuals, research, and different type of information that should be interesting and useful for your work as an organization or as part of a network wherever you are based. And that is basically one of our main purposes for today. We're going to present, we'll have a discussion in which we, on the one hand, will be presenting one of our most recent guides. It's called Creating Value, Voice, and Collective Impact through the WINGS Network Guide, or that's the idea. We'll have the author here, Filiz. I can see she's already connected, and we're very, very grateful for her participation here. And she will be just giving us a general overview of the document, what's its importance, what's its focus, what are the elements of this guide, and why should it be important in a moment like this in the world. And obviously, we will have also a couple of WINGS members who will be sharing some of their thoughts and ideas, not only regarding this document or the notions of this document, but also their own experience. Mariana Sandoval, she's joining us from Mexico as well, from Comunalia, and Erika Sanches, she should be joining in a moment, or maybe she's already there, from GIFE in Brazil. Both are important institutions that have done amazing work, particularly, in their time, but also in these particular hard times, their work has been outstanding, and we are not inviting them or ask them to join us because of the work in these past months, but because of their continuous participation, their engagement, and their understanding of the importance of networks. So without further ado, I don't know if my colleague here, Cecilia, would like to just point out some type of some message. So please, Cecilia, before we can give the floor to Filiz so she can share with us a few of her comments. Thank you very much for joining, and greetings to you all once again.
Thank you very much, Pablo, and thank you very much, everyone, for joining. For me, it's a pleasure. It's my first WINGS event. I have recently joined the WINGS team as Senior Network and Communications Associate. I already know quite a lot of the organizations that are now joining us in our webinar today, and I'm really happy to get to know all of you. For me, I just wanted to mention to you a couple of things before we kick off, just to please take into account that in order to avoid any inconveniences during the call, please leave all your mics muted. If you want to make any questions, we're going to have a specific moment in order to answer any questions that you can put into the chat, or you can also raise your hands through the system in WebEx, and we will allow you to open your mic so you can make any questions. If you have any concerns during the call, please don't hesitate in talking directly with the WINGS office, directly from our chat. And well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining. So we can now kick off this webinar.
Great, thank you very much. So, Filiz, thank you very much for sharing us your time and your knowledge and the experience of developing these amazing guides. So, please, we're welcome you, Filiz Bikmen, and thank you very much for sharing your time with us.
Thank you so much, Pablo, and everybody. Welcome. I'm sorry that I have my video shut off. I wish I could look like that picture that you see on the screen, but because of a horrible eye infection, I do not look like that picture. So I will just remain on audio and hope that you will forgive me for that, and also hope that this eye infection will be gone soon. Thank you again for coming. I have about 15 minutes or so to share with you an overview of this guide, and then engage our friends who are actually in the field of practicing the realities of working with philanthropy networks in your region. And if it's okay, I'd like to start with a few little questions to everybody. If everyone can please keep the chat box open and just write their answers there. So the first question I have to you is, what kind of organization are you? A formal membership organization? If that, you can just write A, or formal membership organization. Or B, a network. Or C, other. And would be lovely if you could just type in your answers there. I'll give you just a second to do that. We'll have some questions. Normally, if we were in a room together, this would be much more lively, but I think we're getting used to being online all the time. So excellent. So I see a lot of others, and the networks. Okay. Just waiting for a few more people. All right. Okay. Pablo, how many people do we have on the call?
We're 38 participants so far. Yeah.
All right. So we're a little low on the participation with the chat, but that's okay. We'll get up there. So my first question to you is there a difference between a membership association and a network? Do you agree, yes or no? Everybody can just write Y or N or M, as in maybe, in the chat boxes. Is there a difference between a network and a member association, in your view, in practice? And we'll get to why, just yes or no at this point, or maybe. Okay, I see. Not all networks are members. Okay, cool. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Good. Looks like everyone is in agreement here, at least the active chatters, which I'm grateful to. Others of you who are willing to jump on there and give some energy would be wonderful as well. So one of the reason why I'm starting with this question is something that Benjamin and I and the WINGS team debated lots about was, our philanthropy networks membership associations and our philanthropy membership associations networks. And I'm not sure. Yeah. There are some blurry lines here. For the most part, the formal membership associations, obviously, there is a difference in a technical sense. Formal membership organizations, they define who can and cannot be a member. There's often some fees involved. There are some agreements, and as you know, in many countries, there's also, they may be bound to some association law as well. There's something called the formal membership association, where individuals are members, or organizations are members. Networks, on the other hand, they could be loose, they could be also structured, but for the most part, they do not resemble membership associations in the sense that they're not necessarily also concentrated with a core secretariat or one control point. They might be a little bit more diffuse in the way that they're structured and organized. So sometimes they are different, sometimes they are similar, there are some blurred lines. But this leads us to another question. If you had to guess, in terms of the difference between membership associations and networks, getting people to work together, which one do you think would be more effective? Getting your members or the people that you're working with more effective, whether or not you're a network or member association on this call, doesn't have to be, you can still share your opinion. So which form do you think is the best form to get people to work together? A network, B, a membership association, C, both of them, D, neither of them. I'll repeat it as you're answering. The question is, which form is the best way to get people and organizations working together? A, network, B, membership association, C, both, D, neither. Okay, depends on the aim. Some people say both. I love that depends. Network's more spontaneous, so yeah. The best is A, however, B is easier. That's interesting. Wonderful. Really great. Please keep typing. We're not moving on too far from the subject, because actually one of the main issues that we're addressing in this guide and today is, we even joked around with Benjamin about, putting in a little test quiz in this guide, to be or not to be a membership association or a network. And that, when people originally created their philanthropy, let's say associations and groups, that maybe this was not necessarily in the forefront of their minds. But, not all membership associations are networks. They don't act like networks. And so then the question becomes, what do networks act like? And how does that help us achieve this value creation, collective voice, and collective impact? So thank you for that start. It's good to see that you're there and participating and sharing your perspectives, and we're going to continue in this interactive way. If I can just ask the WINGS team to please move on to the next slide. This is a very brief overview of the kind of conceptual framework that the guide is based on. And I developed this based on the tensions that I was seeing in the field. By the way, I have led a philanthropy network in Turkey. I have been on the boards of different regional and global philanthropy networks. And I've been doing a lot of research on them in the past year. So this has been for the almost 20 years of my career, a very important part of my work and something that I've been very passionate about. So I'm always hearing some kind of tension here. And I wanted to put that in a picture, hoping that it would help people like you that are either working in these networks or membership associations or working with them to support them, maybe help to have these kinds of sometimes difficult conversations about these tensions. So here you'll see two perspectives on focus, a member focus and a sector focus, and then two perspectives on approaches. One is responding to needs, and the other is being a bit more proactive and trying to shape the field. So looking at this, we have four areas. I'm starting from the very top, which is, the member network services and engagement. Often, whether you're a membership association or a network, your perhaps first and initial strongest instinct is, how can I serve those that are part of my familia? And this is an important part of how members, whether they're individuals or institutions, how they perceive value, how you add value. And we discussed this quite a bit in the guide. There are some ideas on how to increase that value, how to measure it. Now, writing this guide, I was quite surprised. There is so much out there in the world of membership association effectiveness. But I'm really curious how much the philanthropy world, in terms of philanthropy membership organizations and networks, really tapping into that know-how. So, for instance, as you well know, the private sector is organized into many membership associations, in the sector level and the professional level. And there's a lot of technical information there. I reference quite a bit of it in the guide. You can look back to it. But understanding what members want, doing needs assessments of the surveys, doing benchmarks of the fees, and so forth, it's really important in understanding and trying to better engage with them, so keeping close. So these and other things that we discussed in the guide. Moving on to the second dimension to the right, which is a bit more proactive in shaping the field, is knowledge and practice. We see this being a very common, also kind of member-focused approach. Knowledge and practice meaning training programs, sessions where peers are sharing knowledge, how did you handle problems, how do you create new solutions, and so forth. And this is a bit more also responsive, of course, but a little bit in the shaping the field, because generally you're trying to promote good practice, what we call best practice or whatever that may be. And this is also perceived as being highly valuable. By the way, when I say these perceptions, I'm referring to the WINGS global research on the networks that some of you responded to. I've also done some very in-depth research on European network of philanthropy support organizations and so forth. So this is based on some evidence. So this kind of top dimension of creating value in terms of, serving members and promoting knowledge and practice. Now we shift to the bottom part of this, which is looking more at the sector level. And this is about amplifying the voice of the sector oftentimes. Organizations like yours are formed to represent the sector or to promote and develop the sector, whatever it may be. And these often fall into two activity areas. One is advocacy, which is, again, could be very responsive to needs, usually. And then thought leadership. There could also be some regulatory ideas that are in the thought leadership area, by the way. Advocacy in this case means problems that you're trying to address. For instance, restrictive fundraising laws, like what's happening in India right now, right? That would be more of an advocacy issue. Whereas promoting a new regulation for, let's say, social enterprises, that would be a little bit more thought leadership, right? That could refer to a regulatory framework, but it's about new practices, new ideas, things that don't already exist. So just to summarize this picture, and basically these four topics go in very detail into the guide. I'm not going to get into that here on this call today, but just to summarize and say a couple of things when you're working with your leadership teams and your members is to be really clear, checking in every now and then, where are we in our organizational life cycle? Are we sector focused? Are we member focused? Are we balanced? These things obviously change over time. They change based on needs. They could change based on funds. But ultimately, I think it's really important to be do a quick, those quick fun Facebook tests that we used to do. Actually, I never did that. I was always quite suspicious of them. But, what sign are you? What profile are you? These kinds of simple things. This can also be one way of just putting it up there and having this common conversation with everyone. Where are we as an organization? And when you sense that there's a bit of tension, for instance, maybe members say, well, we're paying all these fees and you're just publishing, articles about, the benefits of social enterprise. What about our needs? Or the opposite, you do really good training and really good services, but what about, helping to promote the sector, being a bit more visible or doing some more advocacy? So, there's many conversations like that happen, and this guide covers these topics in a way that tries to help you reframe them. There's tons of resources in the guide. I must have looked at least 100 different resources when writing it. We only agreed to reference 50 of them. All of them are linked in the online guide. So now I move on to the second part of the discussion that I was asked to touch on today, which links back to the issues about networks and membership associations and working collaboratively. Now, I don't know if you all have the guide open in front of you, but you can kind of fast forward to page 33, because this is the section on collective impact. And this is a really actually important section because the idea of collective impact in this guide is focusing primarily on how philanthropy membership associations and networks and/or work with each other. Not only how they get their own members to work together, but how well do they work together in the sector? Because oftentimes there's not just one of you, there's a few of you. And my understanding of the LATAM region is there is plenty of you, meaning there's philanthropy networks, that some of them are maybe national based, some of them region. There's ones, I saw one here with the community foundation. They have alliances. There's some social entrepreneurship, maybe some impact investing, some different kind of civil society groups and so forth. So actually, there's a whole ecosystem of support organizations. And one of the really clear messages that WINGS wanted to give with this guide was we really need to be working more together with different organizations, not in our own silos. And for this, there's a little bit about landscaping and mapping activities. I think that you have done several of these in your region, is what I understand. Unfortunately, I don't speak, read, or write Spanish or Portuguese, so my understanding of your work is limited in that sense. However, this landscaping is understanding, what the needs are, so what's happening in philanthropy, whereas the mapping would be a little bit more who are the actors, who is doing what. So we talk about that a little bit in the guide, and then we move on to talk about networks, connectivity, relationships, and things like collective action. So I'd like to say a little bit about that as well. Couple of things here. There's a great organization called the Interaction Institute for Social Change. I highly suggest taking a look. It's interactioninstitute.org. They have a lot of experts on networks, and this is where, when I was writing this section of the guide, I really started to think about, are membership associations in philanthropy really networks? And what do networks have to teach those membership associations? So according to the WINGS research, there is a large number of formally organized membership associations that act as philanthropy support organizations. And one question comes to mind is, do you really need to be a membership association sometimes? Maybe some of them were formed. So for instance, the Third Sector Foundation of Turkey is formed as a formal membership organization, so everybody pays dues. Or maybe some of you know the European Foundation Center, the Council of Foundation, right? Here's a question to all of you. Maybe you could just put in yes or no, maybe in the chat. Do you think that those organizations can still do what they do, even if they didn't have members? What is really the value add of a membership association if you're going to be producing papers, organizing trainings, and doing this kind of sector development work? Does that necessarily require you to be a membership association? I'd be curious to see some of your responses to that. And if you do decide to be a membership association, well then, what kind of active steps do you take to really connect those members? Are you really taking action to be a network? What are those actions? Are you helping to create the connectivity among the members? Are you helping to create some alignment of shared knowledge? Are you helping them to work together? And so this is a kind of provocative question in a lot of ways, because some membership associations don't necessarily see themselves as being networks and trying to get people to work together. Maybe they see themselves as just being a service provider, which is fine. And some of them see themselves in a different role. And it sounds to me, from the briefing that I got for today, is that in your region, there's a lot of questions about how do we work better together and how do we get our members to work better together. And I think in that sense, this guide and this last section in particular offers some insights. And one of the big questions when it comes to those insights is, what is the difference between collaboration and collective action? Are they the same thing? Are they different, and how so? So just a few points on this before we kind of stop and start taking some questions and comments from you is collaboration is more about working together to achieve particular common goals. So let's say you have a group that wants to work on environmental issues, or a group that wants to work on a particular region or country, a particular location, right? There's a common goal, and you're trying to put your resources and your heads together to work toward them. Collective impact is a little bit different. I see people posting questions here. Please feel free to do that. That's great. We will be getting to those. So as they come to mind, please write them in the chat. Mark Kramer and his team have published a series of articles a couple of years ago in the Stanford Social Innovation Review around collective action and collective impact. And as opposed to collaboration, where you're aligning and working together to achieve goals, collective impact is about aligning those goals, not necessarily trying to achieve them together. So let's say in another example, you have a number of funders. Everyone is doing something about youth unemployment, let's say. Some people are saying, oh, I give scholarships because education is important for youth employment. Someone else says, well, I do mentorship because that's important. Someone else says, oh, I offer internships because that's important. Someone else says, I offer 21st century skills training because that's important. Wonderful. Do they need to work together necessarily? Well, maybe. If collaboration is the goal, why not? You can say, let's do a mentorship program together. But collaboration doesn't only have to be the goal. In collective action, you take all those organizations in the ecosystem. They all keep doing what they do. They're all investing in their own areas. Of course, you try to avoid overlap. But what you do is you identify common goals where you start to align your own activities toward. So you're not necessarily working together to achieve those goals, but you're aligning your goals and your kind of performance indicators, or your, what you hope to achieve. And you say, yeah, this is something that we can help further by each putting in our own individual efforts. Let's work toward these collective goals. And the guide goes into some detail about that. There is a visual there. Also, let me tell you which page it's on in just a second. It is on page, sorry, I had it open. On page 39, in which the authors talk about what's necessary for this. And one of them is what they call a backbone coordinating organization, which to me sounds very similar to a lot of the philanthropy support organizations, whether you're a membership association or network. Many of them could actually serve as this backbone. But this is a very conscious effort. It requires very neutral facilitation. Here they talk about creating a common agenda, shared measurement and data, mutually reinforcing activities, open and continuous communications. I mean, these kinds of, I'm also noticing some spelling errors in this document. We'll have to let WINGS know about that. Maybe something happened on the way to editing. These are really important functions. But all of this to say is that there are ways in which philanthropy networks, membership associations can make conscious decisions to become or to serve as these backbone organizations. But it doesn't happen naturally. Just because you're in a membership association doesn't mean you're the perfect place for collective action or collaboration to happen. Just because you're a network doesn't mean it's going to happen. It has to be really consciously done. Of course, your events, your services, your trainings, they're all really good spaces for members to know each other and meet each other. Maybe some of you have what's called affinity groups or interest groups. These are all wonderful, but they're not automatically going to make your members work together. Getting them to work together or getting them to align their goals, whichever your purpose might be, really is going to require a different level of investment. And there's some really interesting research already done on the value of these backbone support organizations and several experiences that have been documented. So there is a roadmap here. One last point about things you might be already doing to get your members to work together, like affinity groups. If you're a large organization with several hundred members and you have multiple affinity groups, one great tip that Natalie Ross from the Council on Foundations in the US had offered, it's also written in this guide, is it's good to have those groups. That does promote connection, trust, relationships among members. However, it's also really important that those groups are not too distant from each other and that they see each other every now and again. So if you have an environmental, a disability, and a gender working groups, let's say, every now and then those groups should also meet each other. This really helps to create a lot of warmth and connectivity in the organization. So those are some tips. There's a lot more to be said about networks. I couldn't possibly finish that in 15 minutes. However, if you haven't already, please do take a look at the guide. Look at some of my references on network building, network analysis. It's really fascinating stuff. And I think with this dimension, we can add a lot more value to the field. Pablo, I'll stop there and let's open it up for questions and comments from our two practitioners.
Sure. Thank you very much. Sure. Thank you very much, Filiz. We'll pass on to Mariana. She can tell us a bit more about her work. And I think also it would be very interesting to listen to her comments and her experience in these notions that one has of the importance of collaboration and collective impact, but some of the struggles as well once we start operating the work with members that are very diverse and so on. And then we will pass on to Erika, and then we'll have a few questions. Thank you very much, Filiz. And so Mariana, please, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Pablo. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Mariana. I'm the Executive Director of Comunalia, which is a formal member association and alliance of the community foundations in Mexico. Comunalia started in 2011 as a formal member association to strengthen the community foundations in Mexico. But 2 years ago, in 2018, Comunalia was living a crisis of the members had lost trust, like the sense of belonging to the alliance. They didn't even recognize the value. So at that moment, I was hired to face that challenge, and that's why I put that image. If you can please go to the next slide, Pablo. Thanks. So all of the people that were making decisions in Comunalia, and even me, we were all experts in community foundations, but we were not experts in networks of community foundations. So we have all this amazing knowledge and talent of people all around Mexico, but we didn't exactly where to start. Next, please. So I swear WINGS didn't pay me to mention this, but the truth is that I started doing research. I read all what WINGS has done about networks, and I also contacted Community Foundations of Canada, UK Community Foundations, and the European Community Foundation Initiative, who were a big support for me and to design all this new strategic plan for Comunalia. So next, please. So after doing this, like reading all this theory about networks and then contacting the practitioners in all these countries, I started to organize all the concepts, all that we wanted to do. And that was in 2018. Now, next, please. I also use this framework to share with you what are we doing in Comunalia with our strategic plan, which is Comunalia 2.0, and also what we decided to do facing COVID-19 and other in the political context that we are living in Mexico. So Comunalia was created, as I mentioned, to be a member organization that our community foundations are our priority, and we couldn't, so we focus on that. and we created Comunalia Hub, which is this center to strengthen, to connect community foundations with other organizations, within them. All these strengthened plans are in Comunalia Hub, and we develop it, we created, we are developing it, and this has been super successful to return the value to our net. I sometimes you can identify that I use the word network and another alliance, and that's because I feel Comunalia sometimes acts as a formal member association, but in other senses, I think we have put like a lot of flexibility in our processes. We even now are discussing if we should take into our network foundations that are not community foundations. We have been reached by a lot of institutions that are aware of our work in Comunalia Hub, and they are interested in participating. So we have that debate going on. So we also are working with universities, like to have more knowledge and practice about the movement of community foundations. And but also, and we even have it in our vision, we say that we want to strengthen community foundations, but we want to create a greater impact in Mexico and in the philanthropy ecosystem. So we started working with other actors in the Mexican philanthropy ecosystem. For example, right now in Mexico, we are facing a very complicated fiscal and political context, and we are part of UNIDOSC, which is a collective that defends the rights of civil organizations. In the terms of tough leadership, we are working with Pulso OSC, which is an alliance that we created with other donors to identify what was the impact of COVID-19 in the CSOs. So here I put also that is database, that alliance. Then we have a practice-based alliance. We are participating in the donors forum of CEMEFI, which is a space in where the foundations discuss about their best practices and how we can move forward the social investment strategies in the sector. And finally, we are working with Ensemble, which is another group of funders. And I mentioned that this alliance is vision-based because COVID invited us to think in systemic changes, right? And to think and go beyond like just thinking immediate actions. So we are developing a strategy around this, more vision-based. And I think my time is over, right? Well, I will leave it here. Thanks.
No, thank you very much, Mariana. I think it's a wonderful example of how all these guides and pieces and research can actually be translated into a formal practice. And I think that the story of Comunalia, in the understanding not only of how community foundations work, but how a network of community foundations should assume its own mission, and how these different tools can be turned into a practice, an institutional practice. It's an amazing example. So thank you very much for sharing and for making it so clear of this transition between the theoretical part that Filiz explained before into your own version of it in the practical terms that you've developed for Mexico. So thank you very much, Mariana. I posted the link so you can check more of the work that Comunalia has been doing. And now I would like to invite Erika. She should be somewhere around there. That's her presentation.
I'm here.
Erika,
Hello.
how are you? Good morning. Thank you very much for making the time. I know that you've had a very busy schedule today, so please, thank you very much, and please go ahead.
Thank you, Pablo. Good morning or good afternoon, everybody. We are here. I'm speaking from São Paulo, Brazil. We are in the transition time here, beginning the afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here and talking about this thematic where I really care and have been really involved in the last year. So I'm from GIFE. GIFE is also a membership association. We have 162 organizations, member organizations. They are foundations, mainly foundations, company foundation, corporate foundations, family foundations, or independent foundations. And we also have some companies that have a specific area for philanthropy or private social investment, as we also call this practice here in Brazil and in some other countries of Latin America. So today I'm going to share with you two initiatives that we have in GIFE right now that are really connected with this thematic and with the ideas that Filiz presented. And so we have a publication that we launched. We have launched it 2 months ago, which it's a publication about collaborative philanthropy. We unfortunately have this publication only in Portuguese, but the good news is that we'll have a short version in English in the beginning of next year, so we can share with everybody here. And then the experience that we are having with the emergency response. We are a big project focused on the emergency, and one part of this project is about articulation between our members. So we can go to the next slide. Talking a little bit and very fast about the publication. In this publication that was we started to work on that last year, but it was really interesting because when the emergency started in March, we could saw everything in practice happening very fast. In a few months, we could see what we had been researching and studying in the last year happening during these 6 months. So these are the framework of the publication. We have 2 parts, a part of that talks about collaboration and the concept that about what we are calling collaborative philanthropy. And we have, for example, the concept of collective impact that Filiz mentioned now. We have all these concepts in the publication trying to organize how we look to collaboration from philanthropy. What are collaborate in philanthropy? What kinds of collaboration we have in philanthropy? And so we propose a model to look to this universe, to the universe of collaboration in philanthropy. And the second part of the publication is a very practice part where we bring some cases that are in different stages with different that involves different volume of resources, different models, trying to dialogue with all the types and formats that we identify in the first part of the publication. And then now I'm going to share a little bit more about the experience of articulation group that we created for the emergency response. So we can go to the next slide. And so in the beginning of March, we started this project. We had a meeting every week, so every Monday. We didn't know this at the beginning, but it goes like that. We started with one meeting, and then we understood that we had we should have a week meeting. So we did like 15 plus 4 meetings in total that we will finish in the end of this month. Then we have 136 people participating in this group from these 160 organizations that are the GIFE's members that I mentioned. We have 73, sorry about because I couldn't translate this slide. We have 73 organizations participating in this group. We have a WhatsApp group too. So we have an email group and we have a WhatsApp group with all the people that we ask them if they want to be in the group and in the email. And we have like this 136 people participating in these spaces. And then we know, because we check in every member, every organization, and who were acting in the response of the emergency, and we have like 85% of our members are doing some kind of response to the emergency. Then we have 88 projects that these organizations are doing. And in terms of volume of resources, we have 1.7 billion that are being invested by the GIFE members that answer our survey. And we know, maybe some of you know, that ABTR here in Brazil created a monitor of donations. And in this monitor, we have a kind of the universe. It's not the universe, not the total of donations in Brazil, of course, but it's like very close to that. So we know that for the emergency response, we mobilize 6.5 billion of reais. And we know that GIFE's members, with this survey that we did, corresponds to 31% of the total. Then we can go to the next slide. So we have the emergency project has like this four thematic areas. So I'm going to talk about articulation, but we also have data systematization, accountability, program response, evaluation, and knowledge production, and one that is not here, that is communication. So I'm going to talk about the articulation a little bit. My time is over. Is that
we're almost there. So if you could just
okay. So let's go to the next slide, because I think that is the most interesting part. So we have those two phases in the articulation group. One focus on the emergency response. And the second one that we are working on that right now is the planning for the next year, the planning for the next year. Next one. About the phase one, it was a space to have reference from knowing what others were doing and planning what to do. So many organizations arrive at this space knowing that they want to do something, but they didn't know what they should do and how they should do. It was a space to understand the context from different point of views. So we have a lot of different organizations from different parts of Brazil that work with different thematic areas. This space helped to promote connections that became collaborative projects and funds. So people knew each other in this space and then start a conversation out of this space to make things together. And it was a training space. So we invited some people. Benjamin, for example, from WINGS, was there in one meeting to share with the group an international look to what was happening. Next one. And in phase two, what were like what learnings that what are the learnings that will help us to think about, help them, no? The foundations to think in the next year, no? So what we found out, emergency response will continue in the next year. Regular actions are being adapted. Assistential actions will be needed. So there is a contradiction because nobody wants to do assistential action. Everybody wants to be strategic, but there is a conscious about the importance of assistential action at this time. Important changes about how they work. So there are budget savings because there are less travel. So some organizations thinking about what they are going to do with the money that are saving from trips. Online activities will be incorporated even after the pandemic is over. Digital inclusion became a priority for many organizations that didn't think about that. In next year, they will have some actions focused on that. We also noticed that there are transversal agendas and a more systemic vision. So some organization that works with rights, children's rights, thinking about climate justice, for example. And collaborative will be a central strategy. And I promise it's the last one.
Yes, please. Thank you.
What we have learned, that this space, it was something like, we work a lot, but it was easy because it was a big need. The members needed a space to share. So it was really easy to mobilize them to them. It worked really well because there was no option. There was a conscience about we must act in collaboration to do something very fast as the emergency requires. We need to collaborate. It was fast because it was a priority. There is a contradiction here because I've heard a lot that when we collaborate, we take more time to do things because we have to talk a lot to talk with many parts. But in this case, it was collaborative and it was faster than ever. GIFE's role was create and organize this space. The other things happen with no interference from us. It was a great opportunity of learning from the smaller foundations and a big opportunity to have small and big ones together because normally big ones want to talk with big ones. And we have this kind of separation.
Great.
And I think that there is one more, but I think I'm going to finish here because I talk a lot.
Thank you very much, Erika. I think that the case and the leadership that GIFE operated during these pandemic times has been really amazing. And I think that it goes very much in line with what Filiz talked about initially of these different focuses regarding the collective impact and the collaboration, no? And the importance of this alignment, understanding that everybody wants to do something and everybody wants to have these different position and action, but it's important to align, and the investment that you as a group and as coordinators, the investment of time in getting everybody to align their visions and align the resources and align the strategic approach that you would do, it was really amazing. So thank you very much for sharing the practice of your last few months, and I'm certain that we will have a lot to learn, and thank you for sharing also the guide that you developed. So we have a very few minutes for some type of exchange. So I would like to invite everyone and anyone that would be interested in sharing some type of question or comment, please feel free to share. I have a few questions myself, but definitely I would like to just open the floor if somebody would like to share a question. Just please open your mic or present your question or type your question in the chat.
Perhaps as we're waiting for people to share their questions, I can ask a quick one to our speakers. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Going back to this first topic that we had some chatting on, Had you, in this time of your, let's say, reassessment and coming up with new strategies to do your work, did you think about the potential limitations of being a membership association and ways that you needed to, because you can see in some comments here, people say, oh, it can be more restrictive to be a membership association, networks are flowing more easily. Can you say anything about those topics with regards to how they affected you in organizing yourselves and reviewing your roles?
Yes,
Mariana?
I can share the experience in Comunalia. I think being in a formal member association gives you financial sustainability in a hand, no? Gives you something of that. And sometimes that's why I put that it depends on the aim, which one works better, because if you are in a member association, maybe you feel the obligation or in a way of participating or in contributing for something that in a network, I think it's more easy to lose that connection. I don't know, it depends on the problem and on the aim, because sometimes the collective goal is stronger than a membership fee, no? Yes, I don't know, I think I will put those ideas there.
Thank you. And
Erika, perhaps, do you have some idea on that question?
Filiz, can you please repeat the question? Sorry, just to be sure that I understood.
So, Erika, as you were going through this process and reviewing what you're doing as GIFE and getting your organizations to work together during COVID, was there a moment in which you felt you needed to reassess your role as a membership association in terms of bringing members more closely together, how your structure affects the way that your members do and do not come together?
I think for us it was like an experience to strengthen our role, our importance as a membership association. So it was really obvious for the members what kind of contributions our organization as GIFE can give to them, because it was like never because the need was the need was like really an urgent. It was an urgent need, no, like we haven't seen before. So for us it was an opportunity. It was an opportunity to show to the members how have a space as GIFE, and how create this kind of groups to coordinate the investments can be useful and can promote collaboration and can be a value a space to improve the action and the impact of organizations.
Absolutely. We're on above time, but I just wanted to ask you for a last comment, the three of you. Well, absolutely. It's been super clear for me also, like these different situations, no, understanding the importance of defining the role. And I was very shocked by the provocative questions that Filiz asked regarding do you think part of your work could be done regardless of being a membership organization or being a network? Would it really matter? And I think it's an important question for us to ask ourselves in terms of how do we understand the actual value and the importance of going back constantly to our members and asking, well, how do you feel? I mean, are you engaged enough? Do you need more closeness? Do you need more exchange? Do you need more product? What is it that gets you there? No, and I think that both experiences have been very clear in terms of, on the one hand, Mariana trying to define, like, now we need to work as a network, as a member organization. So we need to find that approach, and we need to create the tools and the spaces in the design of our work. No, so she was very clear in presenting the design of that work using the framework that Filiz presented. And on the other hand, Erika showed us like a very specific moment of time. No, we have this crisis, we have all these members, we have all these needs and these tangible requests from our members in order to just get us together and have us working with a common goal. And I think that's definitely two approaches, one that has to do with design, one that has to do with emergency, but both understanding the value and being very clear on the type of outputs and the type of relationship dynamics that allow us to work better. So just if you would like to just share some final thought on any comment that you may have additional in regards to your final reflections on being part, on leading, on managing networks, but also understanding the importance of collective impact and its difficultness. So yeah, thank you very much. And there are three, just the last question to incorporate to your answers. Abigail just asked, could you highlight 3 elements to motivate members to be participatory and strengthen the networks and initiatives? So maybe some things that you found to be actually successful, no, in your attempt to have engagement with your members. And we would be closing with that. Thank you very much, Abigail. And yeah, I can, please, Mariana, Erika.
I would say active listening all the time, like keeping the door open to always hear what the members need and what their proposals are. Then to have really clear the value offer of the association, and that they be sure that they understand it and they feel and that the sense of belonging exists. And the other one is always maintaining a daily communication and an offer that is updated and relevant for them.
Thank you very much. Erika?
Yes, before the 3 points, and I have to say that I completely agree with Mariana in the points. Maybe I could add something, but before that, I would like to dialogue with the Filiz question because it's really interesting. What difference does we do, no, as infrastructure organizing, no, when they could do what they do without us, no, or without this kind of organization. And I would say foundations can do philanthropy as usual without us. But I think this kind of organization has a big opportunity to add value and do something different. And what I've heard a lot and what I found, what I found out is that the leadership, the philanthropists, they have more conscience about our context, our complex context. So we have like very, very complex and complicated problems. And to solve these problems as society, we need like new approaches. We need to work in a systemic vision. And what is that in practice? We don't know. We have to find out together how we do this kind of approach, how we put this systemic vision in practice. And systemic vision means to work with others in many architectures, in many different formats. We don't have one specific format that is the right one. But to do this, we have to be in contact We have to talk, we have to communicate with each other. And then I think this kind of organization, infrastructure organization, are really, really important to promote this space when this kind of thing happens. So we are not going to solve the problem, but we will create those spaces. And we have like more and more people interested in being in this kind of space because there is no option. We know if we look at the last 30 years, we know that we just do things as usual. We won't be the results that we need to see the transformation that we want to see in the world. So I think I will finish with this message.
Yeah, thank you very much, Erika and Mariana. Thank you very much, Filiz. And definitely, I mean, these words, collaboration, network, these are some of the words that we always feel happy to talk about them, but sometimes we don't really understand what does that mean in the practice and what are the great tools. So I think this type of exchange is very important to just start to bring that into earth, and have clarity on the type of practice that we need to make. Collaboration doesn't only happen; it needs to be addressed as with very specific objectives and with tools that allow that collaboration to actually make our investments better. I was thinking about Abigail's question, and I always think when working with collaborative practices that if you're not clear in the fact that when you that the amount of energy that you invest in a collective practice will give you back more than what you would have gotten before with that independent energy, then it doesn't make sense. Basically, if you invest 10, you should get more than 10, that the value of 10. And I think that's part of the importance of a collaborative exchange and approach, and understanding that as dynamic networks, we need to be clear, constantly transparent, and promote those exchanges. I don't know if Filiz would have a final comment for us. If she's around. If not,
just to say thank you for listening. And I know we downloaded a lot of information to you today, and please feel free to reach out if you have more specific questions. And about that provocation, do you really need to be a membership association? I think a lot of people think in order to represent the sector, in order to come together, that kind of membership really reflects that kind of collective power. But then over time, perhaps we lose touch with that. So that question is just meant to really challenge people to remember, that if that is your ethos and that's your reason for forming, then that requires a lot of your attention. It's not just about projects and programs. But if you're moving away from that, that's okay as well. You do not have to be a network or an association to have an impact in promoting and developing the sector of philanthropy. So these are just very honest questions to ask ourselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for leaving us with questions that make our work relevant, or for making our work relevant in the day-to-day basis and with these changing times. Thank you very much, Filiz. Thank you, Mariana. Thank you, Erika. Have a great week and see you guys around. Take care.
Thank you.